Welcome, and join me in welcoming Jackie.
Oh my God. Did you hear who has cancer?
Your mom has cancer?
Are you kidding me?
But she's so healthy.
Mom, are you gonna die?
My daughter have cancer.
Jackie, you have cancer. Cancer doesn't have you.
Do I need a surgery?
Get out. No way. Holy shit.
If anybody can beat it, she can.
Jay, the hospital called.
Ew, I don't want to see Mom bald.
God only gives us what we can handle.
Have you heard who has cancer?
I have something to tell you.
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 I have something to tell
I
you.
have something to tell
I
you.
have something to tell you.
Jackie, I have your test results. They came back positive for cancer.
Okay. Okay, I can do this. I'm sure at some point we have all asked the question, what if? Followed by some extreme circumstance. What would I do if I found out my partner or spouse was cheating on me? What would I do if someone broke into my home? What would I do if I won the lottery? We try to imagine our reactions, but the truth is, we don't know until our hypothetical situation becomes a reality. Life, however, is lived in reality. And there are times we find ourselves in difficult circumstances that test our strength, commitment, intellect, and resolve. When push comes to shove, some people rise to meet their trials head on, while others shrink back in fear. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why do some have to endure pain and trauma? I don't pretend to know why I had to go through this heart-wrenching ordeal of breast cancer. I don't have the answers. But I have learned it's easier to ask what than why. What am I supposed to learn about myself? What can I gain in order to live life to its fullest? Believe me, this hasn't always been easy, and it's taken me some time to learn. I've been faced with a variety of challenges over the course of my life, but the last 2 years, I've ridden an emotional and physical roller coaster that have pushed me to find inner strength I didn't know I had. On this turbulent journey, I've gained knowledge, insight, and found a sense of peace and fulfillment that saturates my soul. My notes that follow are honest and raw. They tell the story of my journey to find a place of elevated living by diving into my darkest fears. Although your circumstances may differ from mine, the potential to find strength that lies within us is the same. My wish is that my pink notes will help you discover yours. Your friend, Jackie Savi-Cannon, 2008. So the reason why I call this piece Pink Notes Revisited is because this story in the book concluded in 2008. Well, it's 2010 now. And I had the opportunity to attend the first conference. I had presented a yoga relaxation piece and really found a sense of home when I came here, because as a young woman diagnosed with cancer, as I don't have to tell you how that feels, there's a certain loneliness, a certain isolation, a certain pissed off feeling you have that you got jilted somehow. How did this come to be? So being at this conference that year really helped me realize that there were other people like me and other women that wanted more out of their cancer experience. So coming back this year, I thought, what can I bring these women? Women who perhaps are further along in their survivorship than I am, women who may be just starting their journey. What have I learned over the additional last 2 years that I can sort of bring to you? And there's been a few things, more things, surprising things, that I'll kind of share as we go along. And so the intention of this Pink Notes Revisited and my interaction with people since this book has come to be is there is a conversation that we've all been engaging here all weekend. A certain way of being and interacting with people like ourselves that brings us up and lifts us in a way that I can't describe, but you all know, because you all feel it right now. We felt it all weekend. Sometimes I would sit and listen when I was watching the movies the other night, and I felt like I wanted to cry. And I thought, wow, I still want to cry. It still is that painful. And that sort of made me realize that there are many, many layers, even beyond Shrek talking about the onion layers, you know? It's very, very deep. So my intention today is sort of pass on where I'm at now and what my hope is going forward, but also to engage the rest of you in this conversation. And some of you have attended Sandra's workshops, Natasha's workshops, and we're trying to create and build on what I experienced that first year here. So if you'd like to be part of that, engage in the conversation, and come talk to us after, be part of our mailing list, be part of our community, because I'm very excited of where we're going forward with this. And just experiencing this weekend has been really tremendous. And Carol's message was fabulous. And it's funny how she mentioned, the stories, because one of the things that I talk about is my top 5 list. And I'm sure all of you, well, I mean, the list is longer, but I stick with the top 5. And I know all of you have one of these lists. And this list is the top 5 things people said to me when I was in treatment or telling people worse things. I'll just share the top 2 today. Number 2 was, I was sitting on the sidelines at my son's soccer game, and he was 8 at the time. And one of the moms was sitting next to me, and she said, I was talking to one of my friends who's a nurse, and she said, when young women are diagnosed with breast cancer, the outcome usually isn't that good. So 2 things came to my mind. Either she thinks I'm really old, or she thinks I'm going to die. The number 1, which I find really comical, because the woman who said this, I actually knew from high school. It was kind of funny. I ran into her at a store. I don't even remember the store, but she stopped me. Oh, Jackie, how are you? And my hair had just started growing in. It was fairly short. And so we're talking, and I was trying to avoid the whole thing, right? I just bought my stuff. I want to go home. And so she's like, oh, yeah, I didn't recognize you with your short hair. So then, of course, all right, here we go. Here's the story. She's like, oh, yeah, I remember reading something about that in the paper. My husband's a professor, and he does a lot of research with HIV/AIDS, and he even told me he would much rather get HIV/AIDS because the survival rate is so much better. This woman was notorious for putting her foot in her mouth since the day I knew her, so that didn't surprise me. But again, just sort of reinforced that I have one of the most feared, deadliest diseases in the world. So, and as I said, I know you all have that list too, right? And the thing that speaks to us about is there's a lot of fear that comes along with a cancer diagnosis. Not just fear within ourselves, but the fear of the people around us. And one of the biggest challenges is to deal with the fear that you see in people's eyes when you tell them or when they see you during treatment. And then, of course, the next worst part is the pity, right? Poor. So once I started seeing that as a common pattern and this common thread of people's reactions, I realized, okay, we need to shift gears a little bit here. And so that's when I realized if I wanted people to perceive my experience differently, I needed to project something differently for them. I'm going to be a little narcissistic for a moment and just kind of go into, where I came from, because one of the things I didn't want to do is come to you and go, I was diagnosed on this date, and then I went for chemo on this date, because you all have your own story. I don't need to tell you that part. You know what it's like. You know what the drip feels like and the nausea and everything else. But I think what we need to acknowledge is that moment when you hear those words, where every cell in your body feels like a nuclear bomb just went off. That tingling, the train wreck, right? That, I think, is a common experience that we can all relate to. So for me, that's when the propulsion started. And coming from the health and fitness industry, ironically, it was like, yeah, I could die, but more importantly in my head was like, oh my God, my career's over. How is anyone going to take me seriously? Here I was, the fitness guru, the health and wellness person, and here I have cancer. How is that possible? And how are people going to take me seriously? So that was really difficult. And even reflecting on the book, preparing for this weekend, I realized how much I've changed since those first few notes, as I'm assuming most of you have. You know, there's a really tremendous transformation that happens in us over the course of that time. Things that we're hanging on to so desperately we're trying to control, because everything is about loss of control, right? This new normal and everything else. And of course, I was the exact same way. But then I had to sort of accept the fact that these physical changes were going to come to be. And on some level, I had to be more than just this. More than the hair, more than the ability to jump real high and run real fast. Like, there had to be more to it than that. And so once I started getting my head around it, and I remember sitting out in my backyard, and someone I was talking to this morning, it's really bright, I can't see some of your faces, but said the whole idea of being so calm and peaceful during treatment. And I know exactly what you mean. Because I remember sitting in my backyard, my husband and I are gardening geeks, so I love my garden, and I was sitting out there, and I just literally was sitting there thinking, oh my God, and I just looked up. And the more I looked up, the quieter it got, and I looked up in the sky, and I just call it the sea of sky because it was beautiful blue, and I just had this overwhelming sense of peace. And it was like something was just telling me, like, this is it, this is your thing. This is what you have to do. Your whole life, everything you've done has brought you here, given you the skills to accept this challenge. And I'm an artist as well. And creative people tend to be a little freaky anyway. So I kind of looked at this as, all right, this is kind of cool. I'm going to get to do something that most people would never want to touch with a 10-foot pole. And if I have to go down this dark road, I'm going to just dig and get what I can from it. So I really tried to shift my mindset at that point, where instead of living in this constant fear, why not say, okay, I'm scared, but what else? So then I started looking for opportunities for growth and education, and what can I learn from this? And teaching has been ingrained in my, I used to write on chalk on the paneling in my parents' basement when I was 5, you know, the chalk, the teacher list that we take home. I'd mimic her and do that, you know, so I just can't help it. So when this came, I thought, okay, this is my big feat, and learn so I can teach. I've always taught from real life, so here we go again.